Sponsored by Rabbi Shlomi and Mirla Greenwald. This is a Sicha from Likutei Sichos, Chelek Beis, Parshas Emor, Sicha Beis, and the topic of the Sicha is that in this week's Parsha we learn about the mitzvah of Sfiras Emor, and we will also learn a medrash on it. And there are 4 parts in the Sicha. The Rebbe will, number 1, ask 2 questions on the medrash. Number 2, answer how the questions themselves lead to the general answer, just the framework of the answer, not the details, not the explanation. Number 3, present an extended explanation of a related medrash. And number 4, come back to the answer number 2 and fill in the explanation of the answer. On the pasuk in our parsha that teaches about Sfiras HaImer, where it says, "Usfartem lochem mimocharas haShabbos geimer." Sheva Shabbosos Temimis Tiyena, they should count from the day after Shabbos. And Chazal learned that it means the day after Pesach, meaning starting on Tezayin Nisan, right after the first day of Pesach. You should count Sfiras HaImer, and they should be Sheva Shabbosos Temimis. So on that pasuk it says in the Medrash, Tani Rabbi Chia taught a brisa, Siv Sheva Shabbosos Temimis Tiyena. It says that they should be 7 Shabbosos Temimis. Amosai, when is it so that they are Sheva Shabbosos Temimos? Bizman she'ein Yeshua u'Shechanya b'neihem. When Yeshua and Shechanya are not between them. Now what does it mean? What does this mean? Bizman she'ein Yeshua u'Shechanya b'neihem. So it's explained in the Matnas Kuhuna, in the name of the Rekeach, that what it means is as follows. Kishabar Rosh Chodesh Nisan b'Shabbos, when Rosh Chodesh Nisan falls out on Shabbos, then Yavei Pesach b'Shabbos. Then also Pesach will fall out on Shabbos. V'yaschilu b'Sfar b'Motzei Shabbos. And so they will start counting Sfira on Motzei Shabbos, meaning that the first day of Sfiras HaEmer is Sunday. Va'oz heina Shabbosos temimos k'sheishes yemei Bereishis. And then the weeks are whole, just like the 6 days of creation. That just like the 6 days of creation started on Sunday and ended on Shabbos, so too here they will begin counting on Sunday and finish on Shabbos. And regarding what it says, Bizman she'ein Yeshua u'Shechanya b'neihem, what does that mean? How does that mean that the weeks start on Sunday and end on Shabbos? So Bizman she'ein Yeshua u'Shechanya b'neihem is a siman to this, because when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, then the mishmaros of Yeshua u'Shechanya, like we'll explain a little more on the next slide, those mishmaros didn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash between Pesach and Shavuos. So if Pesach falls out on Shabbos, then Yeshua and Shechanya didn't serve, their mishmaros didn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and also that's when the Sfira will be from Sunday to Shabbos. So we'll just explain very briefly over here how it works. There were 24 mishmaros, and here we're going to see the first 10, because Yeshua and Shechanya were numbers 9 and 10. So if, you can see here on the left side, if Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, then Yehoyariv, who was the first, would start on Shabbos, and he would work the whole next week. Then on the next week, which was already Ches, Yedaya would start, and he would work the whole following week. Then on Pesach itself, since it's a Yom Tov, a Mishmer would not start. And then the next Mishmer would only start the following week on Chav Beis, which is Chorim. And then we move on to Chav Tes Sa'irim, Vav Malchia, Yud Gimel Miyamin, Chav HaKaitz, Chav Zayin Aviyah. And then Yeshua would only start on Hay, but he wouldn't yet work in the Beis HaMikdash during his week, which was the following week after Shavuos. Whereas if Rosh Chodesh, like on the right side, falls out on a different day of the week, whether it would be like the example here Tuesday, or whether it would be the other example brought over there in the Matnas Kahuna, in the name of the Rekeach, on Thursday. So let's look over here on Tuesday. So then Yehoyariv would start the Shabbos beforehand on Chav Zayin, and then on Hey you'd have Yedaya, and as you go through it, you'll see that both Yeshua will have a full week, and also Shechanya, even though he won't have a full week before Shavuos, but he will work in the Beis HaMikdash on the Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday before Shavuos during that week. And so, when we say that Yeshua and Shechanya are not there, that's specifically when Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, where then Pesach falls out on Shabbos, where then it leads to the main point that the Sfiras HaEmer that starts after the first day of Pesach, it will begin on Motzei Shabbos, which means Sunday, and then the weeks of Sfiras HaEmer will be full weeks like the 6 days of creation, where it begins on Sunday and ends on Shabbos. And there are two questions here. The first question is, the meaning of the pasuk Mimacharas Shabbos, according to all opinions, is Mimacharas Yom Tov, meaning that even when Pesach falls out on any of the other days of the week, we start counting Sfiras HaEmer after the first day of Pesach, and not after the Shabbos that's after the first day of Pesach, like the Beitusim said. And so it's understood, if when it says Usfartem lochem Mimacharas Shabbos, it means after the first day of Pesach. So also what it says at the end of the pasuk, that they should be Sheva Shabbosis Temimos Tihiyeno, it means that they should be 7 full weeks and not 6.5 weeks, and it should be with the me'es less, meaning the full 24-hour period. And like Rizal say, Eimosai Atamoitza Sheva Shabbosis Temimos, where do we find that they are Sheva Shabbosis Temimos? Or when do we find this? Bizman Sha'ata Mascha Limnos Mi Be'erev, when you start counting in the evening, so that it's the full 24-hour period. So if that's the case, so how can the Medrash explain that when are they Temimus? Only when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, because then they are Temimus in their order that they're like the 6 days of creation. How can the Medrash say this? It's obvious that when it says Sheva Shabbosis Temimos, it means that they will be Sheva Shabbosis Temimos no matter what day of the week Pesach falls out on. And here the Medrash is explaining that it's only Sheva Shabbosis Temimos when it falls out, when Pesach falls out on Motzei Shabbos, and then they are organized just like the 6 days of creation, that they start on Sunday and end on Shabbos. How can the Medrash say this? The second question is, if the intent of the Medrash is to explain that the weeks are only Temimus when we start counting on Motzei Shabbos, then the Medrash should have written it in a short and clear way. Bizman shechol Pesach b'Shabbos, when Pesach falls out on Shabbos. And so what's the need for a siman? Why do we need a siman? And also, it's such a siman that's only understood after knowing the order of the Mishmaros, and it's the order of Mishmaros that was only established by Shmuel and David, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't establish the full 24 Mishmaros. These 24 Mishmaros were only established much later, many generations after the starting to fulfill the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer. So what's the need for any siman? To add to that, it's a siman that is only understood once we know the order of Mishmaros, and to add to that, it's Mishmaros that were established many generations after starting to fulfill the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer that we're trying to explain over here. Why didn't the Medrash just say it simply? Ein Masayin Tmimos Bizman Shechol Pesach B'Shabbos. So now we're going to go from the questions straight into the answer, and this is the type of answer where the questions themselves, in a way, they themselves are almost the answer, because it's the content of the questions that force us and lead us to a certain conclusion, as we'll see. And so because of this question itself, meaning the first question, that how can we say that it's only Sheva Shabbosis Temimus on some years, if we know that it's Sheva Shabbosis Temimus on all years? So because of this question itself, we must say that the meaning in the Medrash, when it says Eimasayhin Temimus, is not referring to the literal part of Sfiras HaEmer, which that part of Sfiras HaEmer is Temimus on all years, but rather it's referring to the Medrash and the deeper level, the Pnimius Ha'inyanim of Sfiras HaEmer. And the Medrash is teaching that when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, and we count the Sfiras HaEmer in the order of the 6 days of creation, that it starts on Sunday and it ends on Shabbos, each of the 7 weeks start on Sunday and end on Shabbos, then the Sheva Shabbosos of Sfiras HaEmer are Tmimis also on a deeper level, which is an added greatness in the Tmimis that's not found in other years. So because of the question itself, it leads us to the conclusion and the understanding that the Medrash doesn't mean it on a literal level, but rather it means to say that on a deeper level, the Sheva Shabbosos are only Temimis when the weeks are whole weeks that start on Sunday and end on Shabbos. And this now leads us to answer our second question as well. And this is the reason the Medrash doesn't say clearly, because if it did say it that way, then it can be explained to mean that the whole application of Tmimus on every level is only when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, which is untrue. Like we said, that it's on every year, regardless of what day of the week Pesach falls out on. And therefore, it only says it with a siman, in order to hint, by not saying clearly, Bizman Shechol Pesach B'Shabbos, by not saying it clearly, it's hinting to us that it's not what makes it Tmimus in every regard. Because the literal meaning of Tmimus is actually every year, and it's just that when there isn't Yeshua, u'shchanya b'neihem, then it's also tmimus on a deeper level. And what's left to explain here in the Sicha is what is the significance of this deeper level of tmimus, and how is it connected to when Yeshua and Shechanya are not between, they didn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash, between Pesach and Shavuos. So in order to explain all of this, we're going to go into an extended side discussion and then come back to our answer. So in the Medrash Rabbah on our Parsha, we find another teaching regarding the matter of Tmimus. It says over there, again, a teaching from a Brisa that Rabbi Chia taught. Tani Rabbi Chia taught a Brisa. Sheva Shabbos Tmimus Tihiyena. They should be Sheva Shabbos Tmimus. Amos Ahin Tmimus. When are they Tmimus? Bizman Sheyisrael Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim. When the Yidden do the will of Hashem. And that Tzemach Tzedek explains that these two teachings in the Medrash, the one that we brought at the beginning of the Sicha, from Koheles Rabbah, and the one that we're bringing over here, from the Medrash on our Parsha, in Vayikra Rabbah, are connected in their underlying message. Meaning, what are we saying here? That the greatness of Tmimus that happens on its own in a year when Pesach falls out on Shabbos can be reached and achieved also in other years when Pesach falls out in middle of the week. And that can be through the Avodah of Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim. And since the greatness of Tmimus is achieved through Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim, so it's understood that the deeper meaning of Tmimus will be understood through first explaining the Avodah of Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim. So we're going to explain what is the Avodah of Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim, how is that connected to Sfiras HaEmer and making Sfiras HaEmer Tmimus, and then based on all of that, we're going to come back to our answer and explain how that's also accomplished in the years when Yeshua and Shechanya are not between Pesach and Shavuos, on the years when the Sfiras HaEmer are 7 full weeks starting from Sunday and ending with Shabbos. The explanation for this is that it says in the Gemara that when it says in the Pasuk, V'asafta deganecha, that is Bizman she'ein Yisrael oisen ritzayin shel makim. If Yisrael oisen ritzayin shel makim, then malachta nasas ayidei acherim. Everything that they need is done through others. However, if it's Bizman she'ein Yisrael oisen ritzayin shel makim, then v'asafta deganecha, the Yidden will have to do the work themselves. And there's a question over here. It's not understood. V'asafta deganecha is the promise of a bracha for fulfilling what's written before it, which sounds like the Yidden are doing Ritzayin Shel Makim. V'haya im shamaya tishmu el mitzvahs ha'gomer u'la'avdei b'chol avavchem v'chol nafshechem. And it's explained in Likutei to answer this question, that in the second parsha of Shema, where it says V'haya im shamaya tishmu el mitzvahs u'la'avdei b'chol avavchem u'v'chol nafshechem, it doesn't say b'chol meidchem, like it says in the first parsha, b'chol avavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meidecha. And therefore it's still considered Ein Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim. And the explanation for why Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim is specifically through the Ava of B'chol Meidecha. So in order to understand that, we're going to explain what is Makim and what is Ritzayin. And then we'll understand what is Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim and why that's only and specifically through the Av of B'chol Meidecha. It's known that the reason Hashem is called Makim is because Hu Mekayme Shalaylam, meaning he relates to the world. So meaning that Makim is a level that's connected to actual Makim, to time and space, to the confines of this world, which is the Eir HaMemali Kol Almin, that is manifested in the worlds. It's referring to a level of Elikus, of godly energy, that is manifested in the worlds, that connects to the worlds. It's a limited level of Elikus. However, Ritzayin Shel Makim, so we explained what Makim is. What's Ritzayin Shel Makim? That refers to the Erin Seif HaSeviv Kol Almin, that is higher than the worlds. Like we know, it's explained in Chassidus that Ratzin is the Eir HaSeviv. It's higher than the worlds themselves. And that's why the making, the Eisen Ritzayin Shel Makim, which means the making and drawing down of Ritzayin Shel Makim, is specifically through the Av of B'chol Meidecha. Because every avodah to draw down Ur has to be similar to the Ur that it's drawing down. And that's why drawing down Ritzayin Shel Makim, which refers to the bleak vul of above, comes from the Ava of B'chol Meidecha, which is the bleak vul of a person. As a side point, but it's also directly connected to this because this is going to explain to us the idea of Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim. It doesn't just say Oisin Ritzaynei, but it says Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim. It connects both Ratzon and Mokim. So we're going to explain that even though the Eira Seviv Kol Almin is always acting on the worlds to recreate them, Me'ayin L'yesh, and to give them life, however, only the Ur HaMemali Kol Almin is felt, but the Eira Seviv Kol Almin, even though it's there and it's impacting the worlds in tremendous ways, it doesn't shine in a revealed way in the world, but is rather there in a way of Makif and Helim. It's having a tremendous impact, but it's not felt, it's not experienced. And that's the meaning of Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim. That Ritzaynei, which is the Eira HaSeviv, which is the Eira Seviv Kol Almin, should shine and be revealed also in the level of Mokim. Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim. The two of them should be connected. And even higher, not just that the Ratzon should be revealed in Mokim, but it should be the level of Mokim Orin Eina Min Amidah, which very briefly what that means is that the connection and the fusion of the Eira Seviv Kol Almin and the Eira Memali Kol Almin is so complete and so great that even Mokim is higher than Mokim, just like the Orin. That the Orin, on one hand, took up space, and at the same time, it didn't take up space, which is the highest level of connecting the Eira Seviv Kol Almin and the Eira Memali Kol Almin. But the main point over here is to bring out that the idea of Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim means to draw down the Eira Seviv Kol Almin, that it should shine in a revealed way in this world. And in order to accomplish that, it requires that the person should do the same thing, midah keneged midah, that the person should work from a place in himself that's above all limits, b'chol meidecha, the bleak vul of a person. That's what draws down the bleak vul of above. And now we're up to the final part of this explanation, the special connection between Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim to the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer, that they're so connected to the extent that specifically through the avodah of Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim, the greatness of Tmimus in the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer is achieved is as follows. The Eimer was from barley, which is an animal food. And so the idea of Sfiras HaEmer, the word Sfira also comes from Evan Sapir, Zakos Behirus. That refers to the birur and zikuch, the refining of the Eimer, which is an animal food. So it means it's the refining of the midas of the Nefesh Bahamas. And the ability to do this, to do Sfiras HaEmer, to be Mevar Mezakech, the midas of the Nefesh Bahamas, is from a level that is higher than all of Ishtalshalos. It's from a which is bleak vul. It's from the Eira Seviv Kol Almin. And like Chassidus explains on the pasuk of Usfartim Lochem Imachras Shabbos, that the ability for Usfartim Lochem, for this Sfiras HaEmer to be done, for the bir and zikuch of the Nefesh Bahamas, that is from Mimachras Shabbos, which is from the Eir and Seiv Shalamaylam Atzilus, which is even higher than Shabbos. So we see that in order to be mevar mezakech, the midas of the nefesh Bahamas, it requires an that's higher than a shtalshalos, and that's why the shleimus of the avodah of Sfiras HaEmer is when Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim, which, as we said, what does it mean? Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim, to make Ritzaynei Shel Mokim means to draw down. This is the drawing down of the Ratzon that is higher than a shtalshalos, which is what's needed in order to be mevar mezakech the nefesh Bahamas. So Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim is the drawing down of the Ratzon that's higher than Ishtalshalos into the limitations of Mokim and all the way until the midas of the nefesh Bahamas. And so that's the deep connection, the special connection between Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim and the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer. Because the mitzvah of Sfiras HaEmer is about taking the Eir Shalamaylam Ishtalshalos and bringing it down to bring about the bir and zikuch of the midas of the nefesh Bahamas. And that's what Oisin Ritzaynei Shel Mokim means. It means drawing down the Ratzon, which is the Eir Shalamaylam Ishtalshalos, all the way down into Mokim, into Ishtalshalos. And now we're going to come back and explain our original answer. Our original answer was that when the weeks of Sfiras HaEmer are like the week of the 6 days of creation, that they start on Sunday and end on Shabbos, then we have the deeper meaning of Sheva Shabbos Temimos. And also that it's expressed in saying, Bizman she'ein Yeshua u'shchanya b'neihem. So according to all the above, we'll understand the teaching of the Medrash that the idea of Tmimus, of Sfiras HaEmer, is there and it exists when the days of Sfira are in the order of the 6 days of creation, that they start on Sunday and end on Shabbos. Because time is divided in 3 categories of days. There are days of the week, days of the month, and days of the year. However, there's a difference between the days of the week and the days of the month and year. So on one hand we have the days of the week, and on the other hand we have the days of the month and the year. And there are 2 differences. The first difference is that the days of the month and year are different than one another in a noticeable way. Regarding the days of the month, at the beginning of the month, the moon is just a dot, it's just a nakuda, and then it grows until in the middle of the month, it's a whole moon, it's a full moon, and then it gets smaller again until it disappears. So the days are different than one another. Also the days of the year, besides for the seasons, that we know one season is different than the next, it's not that there are 4 stagnant seasons, there are 4 of them, and within each one of them all the days are the same, but rather each day is affected by the location of the sun, each day within each season itself. So regarding the days of the month and year, they're different than one another in a noticeable way, whereas by the days of the week, they aren't different than one another in a noticeable way. We don't see any difference between Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. The differences that we do see, like the weather, have to do with the sun, and which is the season, and the difference that we see in the size of the moon has to do with the month. But the difference between Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos as the 7 days of the week, there's no difference between them in any noticeable way, except that there's a ruchnistic difference, that every Shabbos is a holy day. But in a physical, noticeable way, there's no difference. That's one difference between the days of the week on one hand and the days of the month and year on the other hand. There's another difference, and that is by the month and year, they have a numbered order. Like we say, by the month, it's the first month of the year, the second month, the months are counted. Also, the years are counted. Like this year's Tafshin Pei, 5780. Whereas by the weeks, they don't have a numbered order. We don't say it's the first week of the year, the second week of the year. It's just one week, another week, another week. The same week repeating itself over and over again. So within the week itself, there's no difference between one day and another. And also between one week and the next, there's no ordered number. It's just one week, and another week. The explanation for this difference between the days of the week on one hand and the days of the month and year on the other hand is as follows. Every year is different than the previous years in terms of the chayas that's drawn down, and also the chayas that's drawn down adds to the chayas of the previous years, because on every Rosh Hashanah a new and different chayas is drawn down. And similarly, the same is true regarding the months of each year, that on every Rosh Chodesh a new chayas is drawn down. Whereas regarding the week, there is no difference between the chayas of one week and the chayas of another week. And that's why we count the days of the week the same each week, because there's no difference between one week and the next. And this difference is also reflected in the number of days in the year, and the month, and the week. When we look at the days of the month, there are different types of months. There is a full month and a missing month, because sometimes you have a month of 29 days, and sometimes you have a month of 30 days. Also, when it comes to the days of the year, there is a missing, ordered, and full year, which means a missing year is when Cheshvan and Kislev are 29 days. An ordered year is when Cheshvan is 29 and Kislev is 30, and a full year is when both Cheshvan and Kislev are 30 days. And then there is a Shana Pshuta, a simple year, and a Shana Mubaris, a leap year, whether we have an extra Adar or not. On the other hand, when it comes to the days of the week, every week has the same number of days. And now we can give the final explanation for the answer. And so this is the reason that on a year, when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, and we count the Sfira in the order of the 6 days of creation, then the idea of Tmimus is drawn down automatically, while in other years it's only drawn down through the Avodah of Eisim Ritzein Shalmakim. Because as we explained, the Avodah of Eisim Ritzein Shalmakim is to draw down the Ratzin, the Lamaila Shtalshalus, into Makim, into Shtalshalus. And when the days of Sfira are in the order of the 6 days of creation, then they have this greatness on their own. Because also in the days of the week, we have this connection of Gvul and Bli Gvul, the connection of Ritzainai and Makim, the Lamaila Mishtalshalus in Ishtalshalus. Because as we know, all time is about division. There's different parts of the time and change. There's past, present, and future. And at the same time, when it comes to the days of the week, it also has the idea of being above change, like we explained, that they're all the same. And now, according to all the above, we're going to answer another question. It will be understood why the siman is she'ein Yeshua shchanya b'neim, because this siman hints to the idea of drawing down of Hashem's ratzon in Mokim. Yeshua is from the lashon of Shiacha, and Shechanya is from the lashon of Shechanti. And in the words of Chassidus, it says, Yeshua ho miloshin vayisha Hashem el hevel vel minchasei v'hi yirida sa'er v'ashefa the shin ayin nahirin shebezayar kadosh. The shin ayin nahirin represent a level of that's higher than the ishtalshalus. And that's what's drawn down from higher than the ishtalshalus, the level of seviv kalamin. So that's Yeshua. And Shechanya is like Shechina, that's connected to the level that manifests in the worlds, in the Shtalshalus, the level of Memali Kolamin. So Yeshua represents the Seviv Kolamin, the Shin Ayin Nahirin, Shebezayar Kadosh, a very high level. And Shechanya is from the Lashon of Shechanti, which is the Shechina. It's the level of that's Sheichin, that rests in the worlds, in the Shtalshalus. And so it comes out that the combination of Yeshua and Shechanya is similar to the drawing down of Hashem's Ratzin, which is higher than Ishtalshalus, in Mokim, which is in Ishtalshalus. And according to this, we can explain that the reason the Medrash gives the siman of She'ein Yeshua Ushchanya B'neim, because the intent of the Medrash is to say that in such a year where the Sheva Shabbosis are Tamimus on their own, because they start on Sunday and end on Shabbos, then even when there isn't the Avodah of Eisem Netzene Shel Mokim, which is hinted to in Yeshua V'Shchanya, so She'ein Yeshua Shchanya B'neim, the person didn't do the Avodah of Eisem Netzene Shel Mokim, still they are Tamimus on their own, because it starts on Sunday and ends on Shabbos. And in a week itself, in the structure of the week itself, we have this combination of L'mayla Mishtalshalus, that there's no change between one day of the week and the next, and 1 week in the next, and Hishtalshalus, which is all time. That time is about Hishtalshalus, it's about division and change.